Our Peter Doocy has taken his position on the north lawn of the White House. This is quite an interesting thing that's going to happen tonight, Peter.
Yeah, when they give President Trump his badge and his gun so he can go out on patrol with these guys in D.C. No, that's not what we expect to happen. There are obviously extreme security concerns anytime that the president even comes out on the lawn behind a tall fence and with a small army of Secret Service agents here. So we know that there are a ton of additional federal assets in some of the real problem spots for crime in Washington, D.C. And we've been reporting on this for the last couple days. The major crime stats, murder, violent crime, theft, motor vehicle theft, they're all down in Washington, D.C. for the last couple days. And so President Trump wants to go out there and talk about how it is safe enough even for a president to go where no president has gone before, which would be some of these very dangerous areas at night if there is not an event going on. We know that they have command centers kind of popping up all over town to give the visiting federal agents or the reassigned federal agents and National Guardsmen their instructions for the day and for the night. And so we would think President Trump is going to be somewhere like that, getting a presentation about the crime stats. And also, again, we've been hearing President Trump talk a lot for the last couple days about how he says he's been getting phone calls from friends who have been afraid to go out at night and afraid to go to dinner in Washington, D.C., who feel like now they can go out in Washington, D.C., especially after dark. So if he wants to see what it's like for himself, we might see him do a retail stop. We don't know that. That is just conjecture based on the president's comments just about every day since he used his power as the president in this federal district of D.C. to flood the zone with all of these extra law enforcement deputies. John.
Peter, it's Jillian. Do you imagine that the president has ever seen action like this up close and personal? Meaning, if he does bear witness tonight to some kind of apprehension while he's out on patrol, do you think it's going to surprise him what he sees?
I know President Trump. We've seen the motorcade go through some pretty dicey areas, and this is well documented during the campaign. They had to drive through a pretty rough part of Atlanta, of Fulton County, to take him for his mugshot. So he can look out the window and see some of these high crime areas. And again, he lived in New York City. He's got a lot of stories from living in New York City for most of his childhood and adult life. So I'm sure he has seen unsavory things happening. I would also think that wherever he is going tonight is going to be swept of criminals and people that might be the target of an arrest. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be really visually stunning to see a president in places that you don't normally see a motorcade.
Of course, if you take him to a place where all the criminals have already been swept out of, then he doesn't get to see law enforcement operations, Peter, in action. So I'm sure that all of this is going to be OTRs, as we call them. I don't think anybody will know where the president's going to be in advance, but it'll be interesting to see what comes of that, because always the president takes the camera along with him. Peter, thank you. Get us more details as they come in. All right, now let's bring in former FBI agent Nicole Parker. She's on the phone with us. And Nicole, as we were speaking about just a moment ago, I'm sure that security for the president is going to be paramount here as he takes to the streets of Washington, D.C. I imagine that they would probably put him in one of those heavily armored SUVs that the president travels in, typically when he's out of town, going to visit disaster areas and the like. But how do you think this might unfold?
Well, first of all, you're exactly right. We will take no risk, obviously, with the President of the United States, and Secret Service will make sure that this is, extremely safe to the extent that is their job, is to keep him safe. But one thing that we all appreciate in law enforcement about President Trump is he doesn't talk the talk. He actually walks the walk, and he backs the blue. He respects our law enforcement, and he's all about law and order. And this is what he ran his campaign on. And he said, we are going to make America safe. And right there in Washington, D.C., the capital of our nation. And he's going to show America, look, if I can do this, so can you. And President Trump is the one that is always doing unprecedented moves. But you know what? He gets out there and he commands respect. Because like I said, he doesn't just talk about it, he does it. And what this symbolically could be for the nation is saying, look, we are going to be safe we are not going to tolerate violent crime anymore. And again, having worked violent crime and worked the streets in Miami as an FBI agent, yeah, we encounter some very dangerous and gnarly situations. But putting and saturating law enforcement, as they have done, and the number of arrests, the number of firearms that have been taken off of the streets, I can tell you, I know FBI agents in D.C. right now, and they're like, there is a drastic difference from even a week ago in how safe they feel walking around, Washington, D.C. today. But it is unprecedented, and obviously his safety is of paramount importance, but this is going to show the nation he doesn't just talk about it, he actually does it.
Nicole, this is Jillian. Presumably, the president has decided to do this because he wants to see and experience what goes down firsthand. What do you think he is most hoping to learn? Well,
again, having seen the darkest of humanity in my work at the FBI and having worked violent crime, it does open your eyes to what Americans are facing and to certain dangers that people have. My guess is because they have locked down DC so tight over the last week or so, hopefully there's not a whole lot of crime to see out there because they have done such an amazing job. And like I said, the statistics speak for themselves, but he wants to see it firsthand. And this is why people love President Trump, because he resonates with the normal person and he makes you feel like you matter. He relates to your issues. He tries to see things from your perspective. And I respect that a lot. But again, his safety of paramount importance. There can never be a moment where our president is put into danger. The Secret Service will handle this with perfection. But putting myself in their shoes, if I had the president do a ride-along with work I was doing, that is phenomenal. And that is something that law enforcement has been lacking the respect of the prior administration. I can tell you the defund the police, not backing the blue, all of that nonsense that went on. This is symbolic for many reasons, to relate to the American people and to show his support for law enforcement and what they're doing every single day.
Well, Nicole, you're certainly right about that. The president does like to meet people where they live, whether it be in the seat of a trash truck or whether it be at a McDonald's drive-through window. And now riding along with the police tonight in Washington, D.C. Nicole, as always, thanks. Great to talk to you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.